I feel that a lot of what crypto could do is heavily experiential. We've had like we've had the conversations around IRL, URL, and, phygital and all shit around that. But the reality is that I feel like if crypto is actually going to be exciting, it really has to like expand and unlock something that's net new additive.
Internet Explorers.
Almost dead. Internet Explorers episode 42. Very excited to be joined with Jarrod today's our guest host. You've been back on the Twitter bullshit out there, sharing some ideas, putting ideas out there. So excited to get into that. But first, Josh, how you doing, man? You've got an interesting look today. You've got a.
Do I? Sure.
No, it's just specifically the necklace you're wearing, which looks like a surprise me mirror post of some sort.
Yeah,
it's a good.
I was like, what?
How we doing, Josh?
I'm great, man. I'm great. Still energized from a trip to New York last week. Tons of great conversations this week. Just couldn't be more excited about the state of everything right now, honestly.
Well, there you go. That's a good way to lead in. And of course, we got Jarrod here with us today. How you doing, man?
Good. I'm in New York. Actually in New Jersey, but was in New York yesterday. It has been great. It's like 80 degrees for the first time this summer. It's been like 90, 100 degrees. So New York's back. It's livable, walkable.
I love it. All right. Well, we got a good show for you guys today. We're going to check in on Zora. I'm assuming there's some data that we're going to dive into there. This has been a fun one to watch people try to wrap their heads around, and I think it's going to be an ongoing process for a little while. Friends over at Party launched Party Sets and have seen a bunch of volume through that, which is exciting. I don't know what this means. New token models. Let's go discover it. Set a high bar. By Josh's head nod already, he's maybe not encouraged by the high bar set, but that's okay. We'll lean into it. Interoperability, state of funding. Well, we have insights on that. Web3 growth in a lightning round. So no shortage of things to get into. I'm assuming most people know who you are, Jarrod, but what's the current, who the hell are you and what are you up to?
Yeah. So I'm Jarrod Dicker. I'm the partner at TCG Crypto. So we're an early stage venture fund investing kind of pre-seed seed first checks into consumer crypto companies, which we have strong definitions of and thesis around, but I'm sure this crew is very familiar with all of that. We've been at it for about 3 years in the fund. Prior, worked in media for a long time, did a lot of engineering, operations, business side of media. Was the founding CEO of Poet, the protocol back in 2017, where we wanted to put media on chain. So, 7 years later, we're at it. Let's go. And I'm excited about that, but just huge student of this industry, love every part of it. Really love trying to be as creative and elastic as humanly possible. And that's why crypto is awesome. How about that?
It's a good one. It's a good intro. Yeah, I think Jarrod, really why I wanted to bring you on. I think you dropped two good posts in this week, I guess, surprised me. And I think the consumer crypto paradox yesterday. Also just interested, I know you have a pretty deep music background and music interest, so interested in kind of tapping into your perspective on that, where music and crypto are. But maybe to start off, let's just kind of quickly run through the kind of ideas you shared in your post this week. So maybe, do you want to start off with surprise me and just kind of highlight?
Yeah, no, for sure. I was very good at writing in like 2022, 2023. I had a good cadence, but we'd go really deep. Like we had a whole crew of people that we'd write with. I'm trying to be more like Fred, where I'm just trying to put ideas down. So I think that's been good, pretty raw. The only editor is my partner, JMO. So, any typo issues definitely is on his end. But I'd say the surprise me one, it's been something that I've been thinking about for a while. And I've kind of hammered on, at least on the consumer side, where I feel that a lot of what crypto could do is heavily experiential. We've had like we've had the conversations around IRL, URL, and, phygital and all shit around that. But the reality is that I feel like if crypto is actually going to be exciting, it really has to like expand and unlock something that's net new additive. And the idea around surprise me was really kind of this notion that there is a ton of opportunity in selling something to people that they don't otherwise know about. And I think when you like say that straight up, people are like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, I'm not gonna, buy something that I don't know. And you think about like goods and you think about groceries and you think about kind of like a lot of the obvious, surface layer type things there. But the reality is like, if you think of like the things that you spend the most money on, the things that get you most excited, all of those things are extremely unpredictable. And that's what's exciting. So it's like if you go to a concert, I mean, there's some people who like to look at the set list. I don't get that, but some people look at the set list and like want to know what's being played before. But for the most part, you don't want to know. And if someone sits in, which the hero image, if you guys follow me, I love Fish. Billy Strings sat in with Fish, who's an absolute monster. You guys should listen to that guy. But like
Billy Strings and Fish?
Billy Strings sat in with Fish.
Damn.
So Billy Strings. So here's the whole story. All right, I'll do it in 2 seconds. Billy Strings realized that Fish was going to be in town. He lives around Grand Rapids, Michigan. He texts Trey, the lead singer of Fish. Can I get 2 tickets? I want to come with my wife to see the band. Trey writes back, do you want to blow it up? Billy's like, are you serious? Trey's like, yes. So then Billy comes and sits in on night 1, the entire second set almost, and encore, sings the encore, and then night 2 comes back again. So it's basically just 2 nights of that. It's amazing. There's recordings. I'll share with whoever is interested in doing that. But like back to the surprise me stuff, I think like entertainment, movies, when you go out to dinner, when you try food, like all of these things is where you want to put your money. And for the most part, you want to kind of edge into an experience that you otherwise couldn't predict. And I think when people poke holes in those things, it's basically around the fact that like, well, what if things go bad, right? And like, people aren't going to want to pay for an experience that upsets them or underserves them. But the reality is that you're basically just fueled to continue to do more. And I think crypto, at least where a lot of the energy is in crypto right now, a la, 2 years ago on the NFT side, that liquidity moving to the meme coin side, people call it gambling, but it's also kind of chasing that feeling. It's chasing that feeling that like, holy shit, maybe I could 100x my money. I'm meeting a lot of weird people. I'm going deeper. I'm doing shit on chain. Like that's actually exciting. Or, oh shit, I lost all of my money. Now I got to make it back. All these things are kind of catalysts that continue to evoke your interest that I think is just very underexplored as it relates to crypto. And to Dan,
well, I think it shows like very clearly when you look at Web 2, like what the internet experience is in a Web 2 world today, right? Which I think is so often when you talk to people who are deep in NounsDAO or deep in some meme coin, it just feels so flat and bland. And it's because it's a Walmart, really. It's trying to go after the lowest common denominator. And I think like this comes up relevant because I think I get a lot of questions like, what are the most popular consumer crypto apps? And I think even in thinking about it purely as an application, you've actually missed a whole lot of potential out there. And this is why Josh and I talk about tokens as being products, et cetera. But I think it's even more than that. And then you see so many of the experiences of like, you see crypto companies become super successful early on and then really struggle. And I think it's in big part because they set that bar so high with expectations and there's just no way to deliver unless, and I think DGods is a good example of this, right? Expectations multiple times have been set really high. Now they have, the power of time and consistency, and these narratives come back. So it's not about writing them off, but I think it is a far more compelling set of experiences that we need to design for here. And I think they're also inherent in these though, in a lot more and are maybe just disregarded by a lot of people.
Yeah. Well, like when like obsessing over that is what like, I was like, holy shit, I want to write this other article. Because it just becomes so obvious where a lot of the missed opportunities are coming on the consumer side. And, if you're building consumer products and experiences that you want people to have an affinity with and to pay for, like that shit doesn't happen overnight, right? You have to provide value. You have to kind of build a community that people want to spend their time. They have to like what you're serving. And that's a slow burn. And I think the patience in crypto has been very thin. And I think a lot of that just has to do with where the incentives lie. And like, I could tell you from the investor point of view, and I'm sure a lot of founders on the consumer side will say this, is like so many investors are like, well, how much GMV are you going to make in the first 2 months? And how much volume are you going to be able to drive through the protocol? And what's your fee structure? And it's like, in what other world are consumers paying for things right off the bat without knowing whether or not they like it, without knowing it's interesting? I mean, the best example I thought of was like the paywall, which everyone still hates. Like, even if you love New York Times content, you hate the idea of having to pay for the paywall. But it's like the wallet, wallet, OAuth, load funds, which is another one, is effectively like a paywall being put in front of your product before your users even know what you do. Like, how the fuck could that work? So I really think that that's a more interesting type angle to think of as well, which is you want to build durable products, right? JMO always says this, who I work with, like, crypto is so focused on revenue velocity. And we've seen that over and over again, right? Like, the velocity of OpenSea was massive. And to the point that you made, Jess, like, once that meta moves, it comes down. Like pump.fun, I'm not going to argue either side of that, but high revenue velocity today, we'll see where it is in 6 months. Like, that's not how you build durable consumer type businesses where there's loyalty, where, people want to come pay for your product, spend time on the product. And that's like an area that I think not only from a principal point of view, if people start focusing on, they'll start seeing better results and more patience in the long term, but also it'll give incentives for people to not build the next fucking L1 or the next like the next staking or restaking, because I mean, again, it's no fault to like investors, it's no fault to founders, it's just where this industry has been. But if people do believe, right, you see Jesse Pollock say like on-chain and using all these examples of different things on-chain, if we really believe that, build the products that are going to be on-chain, showcase it, allow people to do minting, don't worry about 6 to 12 month revenue early on the consumer side. Facebook had no idea how to monetize mobile for years, right? And then it ended up becoming one of the largest businesses on the internet.
Yeah, I think about this.
I think this taps into to just I think like increasingly I've just found the guiding question of why will people care just so much more useful than like what problems does this solve. I feel like Web 2 largely just got like boring and sterile and like stagnated when like the need to solve a problem and have a solution to a problem just became like, the only way to build a startup and invest in something. And I think that, it's a part of getting people to care, but there's so much more you can do to get people to care about something you're building. And I think, so much of crypto needs to be experiential. It's community driven. It's like building worlds that people want to be a part of. And it's largely not something you can fit into like a problem solution pitch deck.
Yeah.
Oh, you're down the wrong path the second you start to do that. I think there's two interesting things about this. One, I think, is around the idea of like conviction in crypto and actions people take, right? Because I think like if you truly believe in this technology and the impact, programmable money, whatever part of it you want, you should assume that consistent effort over 10 years is going to create more value than effort over 3 months. Now, obviously, if you're going to, there's examples of people making a ton of money in the short term, and those incentives are very there. But I think like, let's look at Warren Buffett, baby, right? Like that same mentality is compounding as long. And so at Seed Club, we have that as one of our core values, building for the long term. And I think the other point is, because I want to push back against this a little bit, the idea that all investors just want tokens and GMV and stuff. It's a meme at this point because it's true. People want that sort of stuff. That hasn't been my experience, right? I think the partners that we've been able to bring around the table at Seed Club, like not once have I felt pressure to go any of those things. And I think it's because we set that as an absolute clear value from day one and an intention. And it's actually given us, because we have a big adventure that allows a lot of optionality, it's given us a lot of freedom and flexibility to do things that are not scalable, that are maybe only relevant for a little while, but in the pursuit of building trust and attention. And I think the way that we're thinking about it, at least, is that doing that without the intention of scaling it, trying to find a density of awesomeness is the thing that actually gets you into a position where you can start to scale it. Yeah. And so, Seed Club's a 10, 20-year project as far as I'm concerned, right? Yeah. And couldn't imagine doing anything else, so it's perfect.
Yeah.
But
no, and I'll tell you why that's the case. A lot of people say they invest in consumer crypto because there's just such a massive opportunity to figure out how to broker those direct relationships with end users. But if you really want to invest in consumer crypto, the biggest thing that you need to start with is just really being like thematic based on where you think this technology is going to take the industries that you're going for, and then you find those founders and those companies. So very similar to what you're saying. I mean, we're lucky to be investors in Seed Club. We've looked across the board, like where we think technology, like blockchain technology, actually unlocks something, you know, particularly unique as it relates to industries, and then how that could actually like be additive or, you know, basically shift an existing business. And by doing that, we've invested in companies where we have 3 to 5 to 10 year plans, right? Like Medallion's a great example. Medallion's big focus was not, hey, crypto should be used because artists want to share their revenues, right, with fans. I never bought that, you know, at least at like a larger scale. But what I did buy was like, look, fans will open up their wallet if you have more things to give them, right? Like crypto is inherently transactional, and fans will spend more money if you play another show, if you offer more merch, if you offer more experiences. And that's where the unlock's really going to be. And instead of looking at like pure GMV or revenue early on, it's, can you get the right artists on board? Can you scale fandom? Are people spending more time? And then with that, then starts to come in more opportunity to be able to monetize that down the funnel. And I think that's how you have to invest, at least as it relates to consumer crypto, or else you just follow, right? Like NFTs are big. You're going to invest in NFTs. Everyone's going to want to invest in prediction markets now, right? Because
it's been wild over the last, I mean, I'm sure you've seen this too, just like how it feels like it almost accentuated right now, the speed and velocity with which it was meme coin marketplaces and then prediction markets. And yeah, I think you're right. If you're on the wrong side of that, it's of like the if you're on the following side of that, it's going to be incredibly hard to make money. And I think investing on the other side of it is really more investing in people and directions, I think, than anything else, which I think is actually a very, I mean, I think, you know, we spent the last, SEO 7 was a month ago. The amount of time and effort, like the difference in my calendar and Josh's calendar between when we're deeply in cohort versus not is insane.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so the amount of sort of work and support at that early stage is that I think is something that I think we're pretty, I mean, it's the work we love to go do, but it's pretty challenging. And I think, you know, so I don't want to spend the time talking about the thesis on consumer crypto. I've got a ton of those. I think like what is interesting, or at least maybe in my belief, is that, and I think this goes back, I talked about this before, back to the internet, right? You talked about how long it took for Facebook to get mobile. Well, it was really the news feed that was really, you know, news feed plus all these profiles was the big unlock. And that's, you know, internet business model, prime internet business models took decades to invent, right? So I'm assuming we're in a similar thing, and we see all these new mechanisms emerge all the time. And so, you know, there's a lot of, I think, strategic smarts in building something that can start to leverage whatever these, assuming these new mechanisms will emerge, that can leverage those new mechanisms. And I think in large part, a lot of consumer crypto and crypto generally is driven by mechanisms that are better at distributing value or capturing attention, or hopefully doing them both. And so I think that's in many ways what we see, right? We see these people building in a direction, and then something over here will be interesting, and they've got a ton of momentum, and this is just a shift that actually starts to unlock the revenue or starts to unlock the growth. That's a very different way of investing than being able to just hit the button and drive attention.
Yeah, Jarrod, I'm curious in this consumer crypto paradox post, are you like primarily pushing back on like taking fees, or are you pushing back on like facilitating transactions?
Yeah, no,
as being like the right starting point, or kind of, where's like the core of it?
No, I think in some areas of the industry, like it does make sense to like set up fees and transactions, like especially like where probably the majority of products that we're seeing being launched, like that's kind of the position and model that they're set up to do. The idea behind the piece and what I'm pushing for is that I believe if consumer is going to be ultimately successful in crypto, it needs to kind of expand beyond those expected KPIs that early. So I think, sure, like when you're looking at lending, you know, when you're looking at staking, if you're looking at marketplaces, of course, like there should be a structured setup if you're providing a service. But if you're looking in broader type consumer industries where you have, you know, music, or you have gaming or other sorts of things, those parameters of like how those businesses have worked, at least in like the financial sector, don't mimic that on the consumer side. And again, like I don't believe crypto is going to be the only industry that's ever been created on the internet that inverses the way that you build consumer loyalty and consumer type businesses. Like, I think like what's past is prologue in opportunity. And it's like, look, like there will be differences. We will see unique things built out of what these companies are, experimenting on. But the reality is like, if you work in consumer, you understand what those methods really look like. And those, I believe, should be more employed in crypto companies as well. And I think that a lot of founders, I talked to a lot of founders. I think a lot of founders believe that and want to do that too. It's just, if they need capital, is the capital there? And is the capital admitting that yet? And I believe that there are a lot of firms that are thinking about that and want to see that world. And I think there's going to be more and more that realize that, like, you can't invest in a consumer company that's just trying to focus on revenue velocity in an area that may require more trust. And sure, the numbers look good for the first 6 months, but then you crash and burn, and it's not going to be as effective as what people want.
Yeah, I think the thing I struggle with here is just like the recognition that speculation and financialization is like by far the most kind of obvious, tangible differentiator that you can build into consumer products. And anything that kind of steps away from that and focuses on kind of just more like pure play, consumer social use cases, suddenly you just like look like everything that exists in Web 2, and you're kind of playing that game.
I don't think that's fully fair, because I think we have maybe been pretty lazy as builders in pushing sort of the envelope in how we do distributions, etc. And I think one way is to push it into pure use tokens to aggregate attention. I think the other way is to delay token gratification but continue to distribute that value, right? So like maybe locked up tokens. I think like this, there is like a difference between speculative drive to participate and deep emotional or vision or identity drive. And I think my read on what Jarrod's pushing on is saying, like, actually, this could be the way more valuable, but you won't see that until much further down the line. And so you got to make that decision. I would say the way that you and I talk about the vision for Seed Club is very much aligned with what Jarrod's talking about. And also, I think this, we talk a lot about momentum management as well. And I think Mason said the cold start, hot start problem stuff. Like, those things are very relevant here as well. And so thinking about, I just think it requires a builder to step back and look at so many different aspects. Who are your partners that are coming in? What is the business? Like, what is your thesis and how it's going to work? How and when should transaction flow? What does traction look like? How are we going to fund and structure this business? Are we bootstrapping it? Are we going to go do multiple rounds? All of those things are decisions that are supported or challenged by decisions we make early on in the business. And I think the challenge is, so many folks or builders, they go to investors have a strong opinion, and they start to look to them as like the right, having useful insights towards their vision in some way. And I would say that's maybe one of the biggest lessons that I had to learn early on in Seed Club was I was surrounded by incredibly talented people that I've been looking up to for years. And I got a ton of great advice, but not all that advice was relevant to Seed Club. And being able to determine which was and which wasn't is, I sat in Fred Wilson's office for a couple hours, which is like 19-year-old me would have just lost his brain, right? And we had a great chat, and it was great insight. And I walked out and I was like, that was awesome, but it's not right for Seed Club. Yeah. And I think it's a very hard thing to do if you're new. I don't know if I would have been able to do that a year in months into Seed Club. So
yeah, I think two things too, Josh, to your question also is, and they're like probably the two most annoying things I think are happening, but they're also probably the most opportunistic, and they're tangential. One is, I don't understand when consumer experiences built on blockchain don't auto mint media. Like, that to me has always been the most lowest hanging fruit, which is, sure, we may not have an answer for like why it's valuable yet, but we do know, right? We do know that there's a bunch of things that are interesting about it. Being able to have this information public, there's provenance, there's opportunities, especially with NFTs, to be able to manage rights, royalties, permissioning and so forth. And I believe that if you're building like a consumer application or product in crypto and you're putting media on the internet, you need to have automint, right? Like, that just has to happen, because you have to actually show people or be prepared for a situation where that starts to become more interesting, because there's a lot of people thinking about it. The second thing is,
what do you mean by automint?
Like, Like very similarly to like Warpcast, like every single cast gets minted on chain. I think any sort of media that you're creating through any of these applications need to mint. And you may not have an answer as to why it matters yet, but you have to do it. Because the more data, if we look at the history of the internet, more data online means more opportunity for ideas and products to be built by leveraging that data. The second part is people have to really answer why on-chain data matters, right? Like I think we consistently say we need to be on chain, things need to be on chain. We point to things of why it's important, but I think there needs to be a lot more energy in really explaining why. And like I think about this like in the area of advertising a lot. Like people are looking for advertising products that somewhat mimic and respect kind of like how the existing ecosystem works, because you want short-term acknowledgement and adoption with, you know, brands or others that are using it. And then they're trying to like lean on this notion of like, okay, like in the future, maybe things are more public, maybe it's more valuable that way. But the real answer, you know, for like a lot of this is like, why is on-chain data important, right? Why is public data important? There's a ton of examples that you can leverage. Like you see, again, like I keep using Warpcast because I think they're one of the best, probably like consumer examples of this, but it's like all that data going on allows you to port audience, port content. You know, there's going to be like more insights. I casted something this morning that I think Dan saw, I hope he saw, which is like, I want my right rail. Like, I don't want to know who to follow. I don't want to know which channels to join. I want my right rail to show me like the top trending applications that are built on Farcaster protocol, or like other top trending applications based on my interest that I should start engaging in, because feed me shit that I should be using on chain. So like
beneficial.
Yeah, I just feel like there's like a lot of opportunity there, but like those things are kind of like one and the same. It's like more data on, and then trying to leverage that data.
So I'm going to do our best to start us moving through some of these topics, because I think there's a transition to be had here, which is last week, I guess 2 weeks now, last week, Zora ripped and replaced the economic model and mechanism was sort of driving the Zora protocol. And I think a lot of it was actually driven by maybe not a pursuit of like, why do things on chain, but was really driven by if people don't mint these things, there's no value here. So like, why mint? And the answer was really, oh, maybe add a bit more speculative value to it, right? So token and market, NFT and ERC20, cool. And I think what's interesting to me relative to that conversation is I think Jacob would have probably been making an argument that, you know, minting stuff on chain is good for data, that, you know, there's some patronage aspects to it, blah, 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 that was started driving the open mint window. And I think they saw that was actually still being driven by a lot of speculative value, and that, okay, well, if we don't serve that in a way, this isn't going to sustain. So I think it's maybe it just shows the challenge of navigating near-term versus medium and long-term opportunities. But I'm assuming we're going to see what sort of action has been happening on Zora here, or at least talk about it.
Yeah. Jarrod, are you good to hang out? I know I only kind of pinged you about the start of the show, but
I'll hang and watch.
Sick, let's go.
Oh, you can jam with us.
Jam. Yeah, so I think it's, you know, we got lucky enough that Jacob kind of ran this idea by us, you know, maybe a month ago or a couple weeks before they launched. And I think we both loved it from the kind of speculative angle. It's like we
had thought of it before. We're like, we should go do this.
This entire yeah, literally, I was like, we could actually just use Zora as, you know, a meme coin launchpad if we wanted to. But anyways, like obviously that, you know, this entire new creator economy kind of hinges on the desire for people to collect stuff. So creating a better game that, you know, makes more people want to collect stuff is great. But there was also, you know, pretty obvious risk, which he recognized, and that was kind of, you know, the creator hate that was going to come out of this. I don't know, there's a distaste for ERC20s and meme coins, I think largely within that audience. So just been fun seeing it come out, kind of check in on how mints are performing, and also just check in on kind of broad public sentiment on in the creator world. And I think largely, I guess some data points. It'd be ideal if we could pull up the Dune dashboard, but I can just run some off. So I guess in the week since it's been out, so 273,000 wallets have collected 18,000 collections since launch, and like 340 ETH in mint volume, and I think most interestingly, like 1,250 ETH in secondary volume, which before was like effectively zero, right? So I think clearly the model's working. There were two kind of very prominent mints. One was like Zora's mint that kind of announced this, and Base's 1 year mint. Both kind of went crazy with speculative volume. Both kind of pumped immediate right after it got deployed to Uniswap, and largely both have kind of completely come back down to earth and crashed since. So I think Zora's is roughly trading at mint price, which, you know, is cool. I think the base one is down like 5x or 10x from mint price. So I think looking through all the data, anything that clearly had kind of speculative energy in it, which was, you know, maybe 1,000+ mints, are all largely down from mint price. And then anything that had under 1,000, so, you know, didn't kind of tap into this huge attention base. People were, you know, probably largely still collecting for, you know, the reasons that they collected before, or performing reasonably well, and are all kind of at mint price or slightly up. So it's interesting to see kind of that dichotomy emerge.
I mean, it's crazy here. There was 2,000. What is this secondary? So yeah, the base mint had 153 ETH in secondary volume. The limitless mint from Zora had over 1,000 ETH in secondary volume.
Yeah,
and then one other over 35 from Jimmy.eth, and everything else has kind of been. So it feels like there's like people. It feels like people haven't really figured out the true new cool thing to go do with this.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think, you know, also anytime a new mechanism drops, there's, you know, all kinds of speculative activity that just floods in just in case something goes wild here. Well, but I think largely like the long tail of collections, I think it's doing exactly what it's supposed to do.
Right.
It was really just like create liquid markets for everything and not just the things that have a ton of attention. And that's largely the case for I think the vast majority of mints. But yeah, it is interesting to see how bad of a speculative game it has been so far for the things with tons of attention.
Speak for yourself, Josh. I was up big time.
Well, I mean, if you flipped it quickly, then you're good.
Well, in true Zora fashion, they didn't let me sell, so I only got a little bit out, but we're still up, so it's okay. Yeah, interesting. Okay. I mean, I love that this sort of markets and tokens coming together. I think is just a fascinating space. Yeah. I think I think that the thing I'm really interested in seeing is it feels very like they just haven't really pushed the UX on the Zora side yet to update this in some way, and I'm really interested to see what they come out with that, because it's going to have a big impact on how people view this stuff. So
I mean, I think they're pretty hesitant too. Like I was scrolling through Twitter, and, you know, creators are saying they've lost creators' respect. They've turned them into oil for the cogs of liquidity pools. They're making art worthless. You know, Zora's using them as a tool for volume and interaction on the platform. So there's a lot of like, it's crazy how people can be when the collecting or the asset kind of switches from being an 1155 to an ERC20, and this is the emotional response that drives.
It's any time there's a change on Zora, people get pissed off.
Yeah,
which is I get. All right, let's move on. We got some more party sets.
Yeah, party sets. So I think it's just been interesting to watch Party kind of continue stepping further into the on-chain creator world. So just before Zora launched their protocol upgrade, they released Create, which was, you know, something kind of similar, like NFT starting points for ERC20s. And then this week they announced NFT creation, which kind of throws back to the 2021 NFT days, where you can actually create with different levels of rarities and just like a seamless tool to make that easy and allow people to collect. And I really think like what's interesting about this is seeing, you know, Party started as this collaboration tool, largely still has like a brand and audience associated with that, and seeing them try to kind of step into serving creators and collectors. And largely, you know, I think the mechanics are cool. People are experimenting with it, but if you scroll through the content that actually gets created there, it's kind of just a wasteland. So I think it's kind of interesting just taking a step back and recognizing how hard it is to kind of transition a brand and audience to something completely new. And, you know, really has me wondering just kind of how they, like, clearly stepping into this, you know, wanting to serve creators and collectors in a larger way, like how they actually effectively do that, because the audience and people that are using the product right now are just clearly not quite right.
Interesting. I mean, I think what I've seen from Party is really like an attempt to really focus in on the types of things people actually want to go do in that world. And I think that's what's driving it. And so my guess there is momentum and traction will be the determinant period. So, but yeah, I think like Zora and Party kind of, as like Brooklyn elite brands, but all of a sudden having, like, I don't know where's the meme coin heartland, right? Coming in to do stuff it's different. But to me, this is sort of like this like estuary zone between people who are kind of get crypto and kind of don't get crypto, right? And it's this type of stuff that I think, your friend sends you a link to be like, hey, we're launching this thing. It's 7 of my friends toss in $100. We're going to go have some fun. Like people, I think, will go do it. And we see that with like Lore Machine as well, or sorry, not Lore Machine, with lore.xyz, let's go buy things together. So yeah, interesting.
Yeah, Jarrod, any thoughts on Zora or Party?
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say, like, what do you think? I guess like I'm most interested in like whether or not we think these like actually open up net new opportunities. Like I love that about Party. Like I feel like Party will drop in. It's kind of like mischief in a way, even though I'm sure Palmer would hate that that analogy. But it's like we come in and we show people what could be done, and then people kind of like can go and run with it. But like I'm always kind of like thinking through that, like, can it be leveraged? Can it be used? There's so much ephemeral moments that are happening through these sort of launches.
I mean, to me, this stuff all comes down to distribution, and I feel like a lot of builders are not accurately focused on that. In fact, if you look at some of the, successful products in the last cycle that kind of struggled through, I think the common denominator in talking to those founders is like, oh shit, distribution. So I think that would be and I think it's a very underestimated piece of like success of pump.fun, right? Like, and so I think to me that's the
I do actually wonder, because Hume did a louder launch. I don't know if you guys followed that.
Yeah, we were in it.
And it is interesting to think about the fact that, like, yes, Base had a ton of meme activity early days. Like it was amazing to be on it, and then it kind of like slowed a bit. The Ethereum community kind of like keeps pretty like close and true to like what they've been up to. And I do wonder if like the NFT as tokens thing is actually like a bridge to start like expanding a lot of those ecosystems. Like the louder drop was pretty awesome to watch. Like we didn't know what to expect, but it was pretty interesting to watch. And I feel like more and more, like, especially if like these current NFT communities really continue to have like some sort of traction and engagement, like a notion of how to expand those things could be.
Yeah, my guess is that those communities will look at that as like revenue generating or value generating opportunities, but using their attention. And I question how much of that they're going to want to push off into third party tools versus try to integrate and build their own. So, and I think that's probably for like the top 10%, 5%, 2%, and there's a long tail to go play with for sure. But it's, I think, a very different market.
Yeah, I mean, so much of this too is just a desire to feel the Binance 2017 ICO boom. Like
those are the days, man.
Like I had so much nostalgia during the early like deck screener, pre-pump fun. Like that's like what it felt like. And there are some projects that are trying to do it. Like you have Cheese doing like Cheese Chain and trying to do a layer 3. Like DGen, I loved the idea of DGen. I don't know like where exactly it's at now with like what they've been up to, but like that sort of like stuff is fascinating to me. But then you kind of pair that with speculation.
Yeah, I think it all really just comes back to, like, obviously it's distribution, but it's also just creating a social context where this stuff matters. And I think largely the answer to like, why collect or why on-chain media ultimately is going to matter is because of the social context that it exists in, the like, reputation you're building, the identity you're building. And I think we're in just like, it's such a chicken and egg problem, because largely like the people that I want to like represent my identity and show my on-chain collection to are just they're not here. They're like my real friends. So it's like, how do we how do we get
look at my JPEGs friends from high school?
Well, it's like, they need to be here in a social context that treats the stuff that I collect as like first party, like identity primitives. But like there's this, and we can do that. Gallery showed up, but the people that I would want to see my gallery are that would like strengthen my relationships with just right there. So
I just think that we're going to have most of these people are going to come into adventures or brands, and the context, and I think that is what you're talking about, right? Like that. So creating that social context is the place where all those things start to become valuable. I think it's hard to do that in just like it's like, you know, hanging art on the side of a highway is like just hanging out on L1. It's like, okay, great, there it is, right? It's, you know, maybe you use good bolts, it's there forever. This highway's going to be around for a while, but like, you know, do the Costco or the, you know, the nice restaurant pull off, whatever. That's where I think more of the experiential stuff gets designed, and what happens in there is going to be very context specific and relevant, etc. But I think people shouldn't underestimate the scale that those things can reach at, because I think L1s actually give us like a bit of a blueprint there. Like, no, the amount of identity level belief in something like Solana or Cardano, for Christ's sakes, is an example of the value of social context, cult building, brand building, etc. Yeah.
Well, I also think it's why, you know, meme coins continue to just run rampant on Solana and just largely have been a kind of shittier experience on Base, is because there's a social context there where the meme coins that you're aping into and holding like matter within that group of people, right? And then we haven't seen kind of the more pure play on media.
Degen and Farcaster is the example, right? All of a sudden, here's social context where that degen starts to make sense, and you know, a large part with the success of those tokens will be determined by the social context and scale of users in Farcaster.
Yeah.
Interoperability, is that a thing?
So
That's a trend. It's a trend.
Yeah, this one kind of needed. Xerox Designer just dropped a great thread this week that kind of aggregated all of his designs on interoperability. And I think just kind of along this conversation of, obviously things are like heavily speculative and financial today. You know, I continue to believe it's like the largest differentiator and the thing to build novel products around. And it's going to be the thing that attracts, you know, hundreds of millions of people on chain. But it's fun to then take that a step further and say, okay, once that's true, like what are all the things that are actually unlocked by more and more people doing things on chain, building identity on chain, you know, more products integrating on chain. And his thread just really showed, I think, the power of that. And I think that's where, like, Jarrod, to your post, like that's where like the magic is going to start happening, and the like surprise and delight is going to start happening when, you know, I bought a ticket to a show and then I sent it to a friend, and then the artist is just directly connecting with that friend without like me intermediating or anyone else intermediating, or there's just like countless examples like that. But, you know, we just need to figure out how to get to that state.
For those who are visual learners like myself, you should make sure you're on Josh's newsletter. He sends out an update usually by Friday afternoon. You get it out, and
it's very good.
It's so good.
I've gotten very into it.
Yeah, me too.
You do a good job.
So if you want to see these threads and everything like that,
it'll be there.
A bit of technical difficulties today, but
I mean, I also feel like, again, like I thought about this in the last point, but it made me think about it now again, which is crypto moves out of itself so quickly. Like, people call it an attention game. I think it's honestly just like people getting bored and lack of patience, and then moving on to the next thing. But there's so many clear-cut opportunities that we've experimented on a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, that I 100% come back. Like, I think like on-chain media, all of that focus comes back. I think even like the brand interest that was there 3 years ago is going to come back. It just takes time. On the interoperability side, it's always been so clear that you should be able to move in and out of all of these experiences very fluidly. And yes, there's like the UX side problem of it, and authing in and all of those things. I mean, the embedded wallet boom is effectively like trying to figure out and solve for that, or log in with, Farcaster and so forth. But like, that's an ideal experience. Like, you log in, you get access, what you have is reflected by like what you've done or what you have in your wallet. I mean, that's inevitable. Like, no one's solving that in email login. Facebook OAuth and Twitter OAuth aren't focused on that anymore. That's not their business. That's 100% crypto's business. So like, and that makes a more fluid experience throughout all crypto ecosystem apps as those get built, but then even onwards. And that to me is like, don't give up on like those sort of ideas. Like, these things are going to take time. So.
Yeah, 100%. Okay, yeah, let's jump to state of funding. This one's fun because, I was in New York last week meeting with a bunch of investors and founders. We've been helping over the last month a ton of our SEO6 and SEO7 projects, kind of go through the fundraising process. And And then this week, which is kind of on nonstop calls again with like early stage founders. And it's really interesting. I think it's like impossible for us who are, lucky enough to be exposed to the people that are building things that aren't launched and their excitement and kind of the fresh ideas that are coming to just be kind of perpetually excited about, the next 6 months. But I think it's funny seeing on Twitter how much, I don't know, there's still a ton of just FUD broadly, people focus on incentive misalignment and, funding all going to infrastructure, and I don't know. So anyways, just very, yeah, go ahead.
Well, because I think it has been really, we've been very, very active in the market from both investing and supporting our teams to get investments. And I think there's a couple sort of big takeaways that I find come up in our conversations quite a bit. I think one is sort of the meta, which is the big question of, are more people investing in consumer? And, I think when Seed Club was like, okay, consumer's the right category definition for us. And you look around, there's only a handful of other venture investors that are participating there, and all very friendly and then there was sort of this wave of SocialFi, et cetera. And there's sort of the sense that more firms are going to be interested in consumer, which I think is true. What's interesting is seeing how challenging it is still for them to get over the line, especially in early stage deals. Mm-hmm. And there's sort of like a tale of two worlds right now of whether if you're in market with some traction, it is a very different world than if you're pre-launch. And for some products that's easier to be live versus not, et cetera, but it's kind of where the line is. And so, but the interesting thing about the traction is that we're not talking about Web2 traction here. This isn't like this thing's a runaway success. What we see is traction as being a way of de-risking a yes from an investor. So founders that are able to say, look, we've been doing this and this, here's the momentum we've got, here's the traction we got, it's going up and to the right. Even if those numbers aren't like mind-blowing, it's having an incredible impact on actually helping investors who I think see the category or interested in the category. But when you look at it, it's a very, very different category to invest in. And that's why I've always enjoyed our conversations. And I think that the sort of media angle is so powerful here, because I think early stage consumer crypto looks like gaming and it looks like media, which is like, the dynamic is such that it's very, very hard to win, very, very hard to show success. And as soon as you do, you're worth a ton of money.
Yeah.
And so if you want to be a venture investor in there, I think there's two strategies to run. One is like, wait till there's some success and come in with a bigger check. And I think this is the Churn-in Group's motto overall and how they came into media, right? We'll go buy 50-55% of the company. And then I think the other way is to index and to be super early. And that indexing is basically with the assumption that you really don't know which pieces are going to come together to really work. But if you find great people with big visions and you can bring support to the table, you're going to have likelihood of success. And yeah, so I think, and in the first category, there's just not a whole lot of deals out there that have done that yet. So we're in the phase right now of I think seeding the things that are going to be the big things. And I understand why it's a challenging category to invest in. I think you have to have a very specific orientation to go do it well.
Yeah, I also agree with you too. I feel like one, crypto is still so new, at least on like the consumer side. So like what you really want to just show is compounding progress. And it's like that maybe like going from like 10 users to 100 users to 200 users to 400 users. But that sort of progress is extremely important, especially when you look at it as like, what could this outcome actually look like? And to the point that you made, Jess, too, like I feel like some of those functions could be things that aren't necessarily extrinsic. So like maybe you're a platform and you're minting content and you have X amount, Y amount, Z amount, but it's consistently going up and you actually find yourself having a unique behavior that people are doing there. That is a catalyzing type event that could eventually, open up and then become monetized. So that I think is like, to us being able to identify like what those behaviors are once they start and figuring out how you further encourage that behavior to continue is a great story to tell and an opportunity in crypto where, there's not many that have been able to do that, in a durable way. So.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I think one other thing that I'm seeing now for the first time is just new founders coming into crypto with actually, interesting, refreshing ideas that really for the first time are seeing that there's actually a way to go use this tool set to go after, big, exciting markets outside of crypto. And like some of the best conversations I had this week and last week were with people who have been in crypto for 6 months. which I think,
And I think it's
has never been something that has happened.
Interesting because well, it did happen before, but it happened for different reasons. It was the tourist founder,
right?
Yes.
And
Our experience of that was like people coming in and building DAO tooling platforms, all these sort of things that were like, oh, we have no idea how we'd be able to go build that. How's this going to work? And it kind of proved to be correct. So, but yeah, I'm with you. Like there are young builders coming in who've got tons of Web 2 experience, who've come in during the bear market, and the big appeal has been the vibe, the culture of building through a bear market has been the thing where people are like, oh my God, this is amazing. This is nothing like what I've done in my other lives, etc. And I think that compounds and leads to growth.
Yeah, agreed. Okay, so let's jump to Web3 growth. Put a bunch of stuff in lightning round too, so we can maybe keep this kind of quick. So there's actually a bunch of stuff within this category this week. So one was Safari. I think Safari, the like growth DAO community, released like a market landscape of the Web3 growth, and it's just this chaotic market map. But it's just cool to see this kind of like on-chain distribution, attribution, all the things that every consumer Web2 company deeply relies on in the Web2 space start to get built out in Web3. So we're looking at that. I think still so light in the amount of experimentation that we see projects actually do within that. Like, layer 3 boost, there's a ton of stuff you can go do to just experiment with, different marketing channels that are very native to Web3 and, the right audience is paying attention to. And then I thought another interesting post was Peter Pan's this week, just saying that, what do you say? Like just that Web 2 marketing channels or like paid performance marketing is not going to work, which I don't know but Jarrod, I'm curious what you think.
I don't disagree with it. I do think that it's not as linear to connect the dots there. What I would say is like a lot of like Web 2 advertising growth, like influencer marketing is the largest category that's emerged over the past 5 years. And I'd say if you just look at the meme coins, that's like been the biggest driver of all of that, right? People are getting paid to tweet, whether they admit it or not, right? And they're just driving more people to be able to purchase these things. So yeah, I think if we're thinking about ad tech and the ad tech rails, for sure, there's going to be, I think crypto's biggest opportunity is to figure out how to start to go outside of that. Again, answering the question of like why on-chain data matters and what that sort of platform really starts to look like. But I do think there's too much. I agree with Peter in the fact that I do think there's too much reliance on kind of like the existing sort of models and figuring out how to fit in there, and then starting to take advantage of the other stuff. But advertising is huge, and there's influencer, there's events.
His tweet was Web3 is likely to be completely incompatible with traditional advertising for user acquisition. This is due to the high degree of trust that is required to convert. There's far too much at stake financially and reputationally. I just disagree. And I think this is a case of advertising doesn't work on me, so therefore advertising doesn't work. I think the main point I'm with you with, like, if you expand it, for sure. I mean, airdrops are advertising, influencers are advertising. But I do think it's interesting, and we've started going down this path, and I think I'm pretty convinced of it that Web 2 growth tools are going to be incredibly powerful for crypto. And I think the wrong way to look at it is Web 2 growth is going to get you scale. And I think the right way to look at it is Web 2 is going to give you absurd targeting capabilities that allow you to be very specific. And I think the thing that builders in crypto need to realize is that you don't need 1 billion people using your product to have an incredibly valuable network. In fact, you can have 1,000 people that really care about it and create a lot of value. And so I think like the ability to target and segment and bring on-chain data along with Web 2 data is just going to be very powerful. And we might not like it. You might not appeal to it. But I think, like, especially in line with our conversation here, if right now a lot of Web 3 marketing is like, come, claim this airdrop, it's very speculation driven. And it's like, I don't trust that link, right? But if let's look at what Blackbird's been doing over the last little while. Like, those referral campaigns have been beasts, absolutely beast, right? And if Blackbird starts to put up out of home advertising or that stuff, like, it's going to be, there's a way to go do that in a proactive way. And so. Yeah.
And like especially to your point, like, I think there's probably too much an emphasis in that tweet on early stage companies, but the more established companies, I mean, Coinbase buys Centerfold in New York Times, they're, the amount that they probably spend on mobile advertising is probably insane.
And I do think that if you like the idea, if you're going to come out, because I guess there's a sort of, traditional app to go-to-market playbook, right? Just raise a bunch of money and give it to Facebook so you get a whole bunch of attention on it. And I think his point that I really agree with is to succeed with winning Web3 adoption, you not only need to win awareness and mind share, but ultimately build trust with real people in order to convert effectively. And I think that's 100% true. So I think there's sort of like an order of operations standpoint. And, I think spending time to build the thing that people want, to build a community, to have like a meaningful reason to be here becomes like an asset that I think can be extended through advertising or other promotions, but I don't think you can go build that with advertising and other promotions.
Yeah, I think we really need to move past this like paywall period, right? To unlock that effectively. Like if we figure out onboarding kind of more free to play, or just like give people tokens or give people ways to earn tokens without having to deposit, the short payback period and high LTV that crypto products can have should run amok in Web 2. Obviously, need to figure out how to.
There's a fun thing to do. People. What if you just launched an airdrop purely using a Facebook ad?
Let's go try it.
I think that's fun. All right, give us a lightning round here before we head off. What we got? Your choice, Josh.
I'm not controlling anything, Cheryl.
Oh shit. Well, we don't have anything coming up on the screen, so we gotta call one of these things out. So okay, I'll choose one. Okay. Lightning round. What is Santi talking about?
I just really like that. It's the framework for contextualizing an opportunity. Does everybody share that link?
Yeah, recently read Pattern Breakers by Mike Maples Jr. Found his insight stress test framework very useful. Here's how he applies it. And this is the idea for evaluating investments or opportunities. Sort of the 4 prompts are insight, in the future, then an answer. This new thing will be enabled by, talking about, I guess that's the why now. This future is non-consensus because, but the insight is right because, and the timing is right because. Very, very helpful. I immediately started doing this for some of our portfolio companies, and I think it's very helpful and probably a better investment memo here than just the general investment memos that are being shared around. So I think it's interesting.
I mean, that's what when I saw this, I was like, this should just be our application.
Well, that's what you said.
This is great. It just focuses entirely on what is your unique insight. Why is this uniquely enabled now? It's not an application, or it should be a component of it.
You should be able to answer. We should be able to answer these questions based on the application. Because I think there's a worldview here that you're kind of pushing into the future. I mean, the example is around Airbnb, and definitely a non-consensus investment at the time. So, okay, that's interesting. I like that. Getting smarter together. What else we got? Ape King. Is this something? What is this we got here? Connor King, amped for the launch of Jeet.so. Jeet is building a grassroots app designed to hold KOLs and crypto traders accountable for the tokens they shill to their audiences.
Oh, I like that one.
I just like that. You could tag the bot in any shill by anyone, and it basically will track it over time, and then just build this on-chain database of how people influencers shills have performed over time, and ultimately create this reputational ranking, which is sick.
That's great. That's a good. I like that. New things to go use.
It's a good one.
Yeah. All right, we're at the time here. Want to give a deep love and shout out to Peace Note, who will be back with us next week. Thank you to everybody behind the scenes who managed to pull us together at the last minute. We figured it out. Jarrod, always appreciate our chats and excited to continue to jam. Flag 2 things. One, we're back here every Friday, 10 a.m. Pacific time, streaming at live.seedclub.xyz. Come hang out with us, tell our friends. We're on every major podcast platforms. Go hang out on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify. And if you want to give us some stars, those stars help more people discover this stuff. And lastly, we have a Telegram group that is still open right now. We'll leave it open for a little while. It's a place where we share all the curated things we come across related to consumer crypto. There's a few people in control of it. So getting really, really, really good feedback on it and absurd engagement on it. So if you want to kind of just see the feed, be in the feed of the things that are happening, that's the place to do it. We'll make sure it's tweeted out on the Telegram or on our Twitter account as well, so you can go check it out. It's been good.
We sprinkle in some hot takes.
You do sprinkle in some hot takes, which I love. Yeah. All right. Well, Jarrod, appreciate you, man. Hope you all have a great weekend. Touch some grass, and we'll see you on chain.
Bye, guys. Thank you.
Internet Explorers.